Hi, hello, how are you? And welcome back to another video. This, as promised, is the house that belongs to the witch I made earlier in the week, um, Raven Blackpool. And I had a lot of fun making this house because I haven't I have built a witch's house in The Sims, other than Vivian's house, our modern witch from the Witch in the City challenge, and you haven't seen it yet because, well, if you've been attending my streams for a while, you might have seen the beginning of it. But that's part of my save that I'm working on, so you'll just have to stay tuned for that one. But this one is Raven's house, and I got to stick with more of those stereotypical, like scary witch in the woods things and those elements because I made her a stereotypical witch. So she has like green skin and stuff and wears pointy hats. So her house got to match that. And so I had a lot of fun because I knew exactly how I wanted to do this. I actually saw a picture of a house with a similar exterior, and it was the inspiration for this. And it just kind of took off. And so it's this little house in the woods, and then surrounded by just like all of this like big trees and undergrowth and stuff. And so it's like very much part of the woods in this little path. And I built it in Granite Falls because this house needs to be surrounded by woods. But obviously, if you download it, you don't have to drop it in Granite Falls, especially since you can't live there if it's in Granite Falls, unless you do a never ending vacation. But I think the rent would get pretty expensive if you did it that way. But anyway, yeah, it's this tiny little, like you can see, it doesn't take up much of the lot. So it's this tiny little house, but it is one of my favorite builds ever. And I know I say a lot that like this is like a really cool build. I really like how this came out, but I really, really enjoy this build. You'll notice after I did the floor plan, after I got done with the outside, I did drop in some of those saucer lights, and those are really bright. And I did put those in there to decorate, or yeah, so I could fill in and like place furniture and all that stuff. But you'll notice in the screenshots and in the build as it is on the gallery that I messed with the color settings of those lights after I finished the build. And so the house has this kind of like dark eeriness to it. And all the candles I end up placing are the main sources of light, at those in the fireplace. So it definitely it has this whole vibe. I got to use a lot of stuff from Outdoor Retreat, which is great because I don't get to use that very often. I got to use a lot of stuff from Vampires, which I don't get to use very often. And I also got to use a lot of spooky stuff, which is great because I don't remember when I bought spooky stuff. Not when it came out, but a while ago. But it was also not Halloween when I bought it. I don't know. So I haven't really used it until now. And so I got to use a ton of it. Even like I didn't want to overdo any of it because I wanted it to have the stereotypical witch vibe without it being a joke, you know? And so I put the spider web over the window, and I shrunk down the spider decoration so there's this little black widow in the window. I ended up putting some of the cobwebs from the vampires game pack in the corner above the stove, and we have this wood burning stove, and I created this kind of like witchcraft workspace over here with the cauldron is it's like a light display from spooky stuff if you don't know. And I sized it up so it looks more like a full-size cauldron, and I put the tables on the either side, and those are like urns and things on either side. Oh my gosh. And you'll also notice this is something I thought was really important is I made the kitchen area the biggest part of the house because she's come out here to be secluded, right? And do like all of her like bubble bubble toilet trouble and all this scary TV witch stuff. And so she's going to spend a lot of time in the kitchen and near her cauldron and stuff. And oh my gosh, I completely forgot that this ancient book, like this ancient tome or whatever they call it, existed in the Vampires pack. And when I was scrolling through and I saw it, I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is everything. And it just like really tied that whole little area together. But yeah, so I made this area the biggest because I don't know, I feel like she'd spend the most time there. She also has seating for 3 at her dining room table. I don't know who's going to come over, but I just didn't want to toss one chair in there. It made the room feel too empty. And then I put over here on the side is a little seating area, and you'll notice it only has one chair. There's a stool over there, like in case you do want some other people to come over or something. But mostly, like I was very much picturing this, like no one really comes over here because they're afraid she's going to eat them or like curse them or something. It's just like her little hideaway. So, oh my gosh, I can't say enough about this house. I really do wish though that I placed that fireplace, but I wish that there had been a dark swatch of the fireplace that came with um why can't I think of the name of the pack? Anyway, it's from Selvdorada. Oh, Jungle Adventure. Oh my gosh, I don't know why I blanked on that. Because that clay brick fireplace would have looked so cool in here because it's like has such a handmade look to it, you know? And I thought that would have been cool. But this fireplace works. It's fine. I put the scary grandfather clock from Vampire Stuff in here. I worked to have the kind of like perfect balance between rustic and that like Victorian stuff from the Vampires pack, and then like a little bit of scary stuff with like candles and things. Other than the cauldron and like the spider that I shrunk down, I tried not to use any of the like really cheesy spooky stuff, you know, so I didn't want to like ruin how the house was coming together. And I just, once the floor plan was complete and I had put in all the furniture and decorations, I just kind of looked at this house and I was like, oh my gosh, this really came together. I put a lot of plants in here. I put a lot of clutter in here. Like, you can't have a witch's house without clutter. I kind of maybe wish I had done a little bit more cobweb action in here, but at the same time, I was kind of worried about. I mean, already it's a tiny house, it's a little tiny house, and there's a lot of clutter anyway. And I didn't want it to turn into some of those really fine, I guess fine would be the word, elements of clutter and decoration to get in the way of the house functioning. Right now, I think it functions fine. I haven't done a ton with it, but everything should work great. She has a clawfoot tub. What witch wouldn't have a clawfoot tub? It's for what? Let's be real. It's for when your cauldron's too small for the potion you're making and you actually need a giant tub for your stuff. No, I'm just kidding. And then I didn't mention it earlier, but the windows, you'll notice I used a bunch of different windows. So you have some of these small windows, and then you have the open shuttered windows, and then you have some that are shuttered up. The picture that inspired this, I think all of the windows in that picture were either shuttered or boarded up. And I was like, okay, I can maybe improvise that a little bit. And so I tried to, and I think it worked. I even ended up on a couple of the windows putting some of the like cracks, the wall cracks and like tears from the Vampire Stuff pack on them to give them an extra look of like creepiness. And they have this little path that goes, and I originally wanted like a little wooden fence, like, but there wasn't anything that really worked. And so I went with stone instead because it blended better. And you see, I tried to really hard to try to fit an ice rink in there, like cheat that in there somehow, because remember we kind of headcanoned in the greatest video that she's a professional ice skater as well as a very stereotypical looking witch. But the lot was just too small, and I'm glad it didn't work out because in the end it probably would have. I was going to like fill it in with like trees and bushes and things, so you could get into it, but you couldn't really tell what it was from outside. It wouldn't ruin the whole aesthetic of the lot, but it didn't fit, and I'm kind of glad it didn't because I ended up cluttering the lot so much with plants, the grasses and the trees and everything. And I just think it came together so well. And I'm gonna play in this house. I'm gonna send her on like a really long vacation to play with it in the woods as it's intended because that's just I'm really proud of it. I hope you like it. But anyway, the screenshots are about to roll through, so I'm gonna let you go. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'd love to know what you think, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!